Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, staff, fellow councillors. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of council for Tuesday, September 16th at 5 p.m. It's held and transmitted electronically via council chambers, which are located at 39 South Shore Road, Lake Cowichan, BC. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge with gratitude that we are gathered to do our business this evening on the traditional lands of the Subasset Nation with thanks. And we do have some additional items on the agenda today. Under delegations, Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Council. We have a request from Mike Hallett to appear as a delegate today. I'm not sure if he's in the room. If he is, I will leave it to Council. If not, perhaps it will be deferred to our next meeting. We also have a letter from the City of Pitt Meadows for consideration of a resolution to call on the provincial government to raise agricultural funding in BC. And we also have a permissive tax exemption bylaw, which is timely because the deadline is October 31st.
And a staff report from the Director of Finance, if you can add that as well. And with those additions, looking for a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Moved by Councillor Frisbee, seconded by Councillor Vomaka. Any discussion on that? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. Thank you. Public input is your opportunity to step to the mic and have your public input, not questions at this time, please, on any item that is on tonight's agenda. If you feel the need, please step to the podium, state your name and what your public input is, please. Anyone in the public willing to do that? See a brave soul walking to the podium.
This is just regarding the zoning amendment and healthcare in general. I asked a question last meeting regarding the rural health fund, or sorry, not the rural fund that was given 1.9 million. So I actually looked in, got some answers, and some of the money has been spent. And I think there's about $900,000 left. And there's actually some COVID money left and stuff. And I know healthcare is not a typical thing municipal governments do, but we're somewhat in a crisis right now. We have no transportation in and from Cowichan Lake. We have no medical doctors and stuff. I'm just wondering if town council, CAO, and planners might consider the great financial standing that the town's in. Like, it's, you know, there's no debt. There's $24 million in liquid assets. It's in a very, very good financial position right now. So I'm just seeing if, you know, the people of the Cowichan Lake area seem to be very want healthcare as a priority right now. So I'm just seeing if maybe some of these funds could be looked at for possibly upgrading CATSA and other different healthcare means or transportation solutions instead of the to assist with some of the people that are doing that. So that's my only comment, just seeing if some of those funds might be utilized for solving some of these problems. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that. We'll take your comments under consideration. I note our CAO is writing that down. If there's anyone else, please step to the podium, your name and your input, please.
Blake Bergen, Logo resident. I just want to comment on that because it's a serious thing with the transportation here. The seniors center has started trying to raise funds for this reason because there's no bus transportation for seniors to get to their appointments, medical appointments outside of this area. I have to wonder why the transportation, the bus strike has gone on this long. And if there's been any action taken.
There has been a mediator appointed by the province to try to come to a solution, and the mediator will bring recommendations within 10 days of that appointment. Unfortunately, we are a participant in the regional transit system, and as such, we are not contributors to the contract negotiations. That is between BC Transit and the transit provider. And it's unfortunate that that has happened, But we have penned a letter. The CBRD has penned a letter hoping for an expedient solution to this. And it looks like at least the Ministry of Labor is listening and appointed a mediator. We will see what happens in the next 10 days. And the mediator will send the recommendations to BC Transit and the provincial government, and we'll have to move from there. There was one penned by the CBRD approximately a month ago, and then ours was done at last Tuesday's meeting. Subsequently, the announcement was made. So I think the ministry anticipated that we were going to send a letter and reacted accordingly. No other public input? Oh, I see another person coming up.
Good evening, Mayor, Town Council, and staff of the town of Lake Cowichan. My name is Catherine Worsley, 320 Lake Park Road. First, I'd like to thank the town for everything that it is doing to help remediate the crises that we are going through. I also want to thank the town councillors for all of the work that they did through the partnerships with the Chamber of Commerce and with the CLRS just this weekend past. It was great to have everyone out. I just want to point out that with the health crisis and stuff that we are in, and of course the transportation crisis and stuff that we are in, I want to look at a part that you have on your agenda in regards to the save the date for the Health Forward Summit. And I think that it's great that you also have in here the zoning the amending bylaw number, which may be adopted. And I certainly hope that it will be adopted. And it will be a great opportunity that when you do attend this summit, that you are putting forward information from our community residents, that you have put a plan together, you have helped ease some of the crisis in having an allowable clinic here in our area again as well. And that's all that I have to say, and I say thank you very much.
Thank you for that. See no other speakers coming to the podium. We'll look for adoption of minutes. We'll start with the minutes of the regular council meeting held July 22nd, 2025. Someone like to move those? Councillor Sandu, seconded by Councillor Austin. Any errors or omissions on those? No discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. And we have a set B is the minutes of the special meeting of council held on August 19th. Any errors or omissions that you see there? Looking for a mover? Moved by Councillor Frisbee, seconded by Councillor Sandu. Questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. And also minutes of the special meeting of council held September 9th, 2025. Moved by Councillor Sandu, seconded by Councillor Frisbee. Discussion on those? All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. Any business arising from that, staff?
Business arising from?
From the minutes? Nothing that comes to mind?
No, sir.
Sounds good. Thank you. So we do have delegations and representations. Our Cowichan Valley Regional District Economic Development will not be able to join us until 5:30. And he's in transit and will join us remotely. But we do have Mr. Halat. Are you in the audience? Thank you, sir. I'm sorry, Hallett. Too many T's. That's too many. If you wish, you can come to the podium and make your delegation presentation. We allot 10 minutes, and just so you're aware, we do not make any decisions on delegation requests at this meeting, but we will consider your input and take it to a future meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and council members for allowing me to present. Just an update on the garage. I own the project at 63-65 Cowichan Lake Road, known as the project, my family. I just wanted to do a couple of things, bit of housekeeping. Last time I was before the council, I felt like I was not duly respected by Councillor Frisbee and referred to as mate. I felt that Mr. Frisbee was sort of a little bit on the antagonistic side with his questioning, and I just felt like in an unfair position. And I would think that Mr. Frisbee and I have had words in the past. We have a bit of a competitive spirit with respect to his property or his businesses adjoining mine. So I would respectfully ask the council to, for matters having to do with the garage, that Mr. Frisbee has to be recused from any of the deliberations moving forward as I seek to develop the property. That's my bit of housekeeping. Happy to answer
I'm
any
not,
questions.
in the position to suggest that any counselor is in conflict. That is for them to do.
Sure.
And I will not override that request, but
I would
I
just
will allow just a moment for consideration and then we'll move on.
sure.
Just for clarification, I'm not the owner of the adjoining property, I'm the tenant. And I don't see any conflict of interest with cleaning up your property. I don't see how that furthers my personal interests. So I don't see a conflict. I apologize for calling you mate. I will call you something else from now on. But
It's Mike Hallett.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Hallett, yep.
Yep.
But again, I guess I'm the most passionate because I'm sick of driving past your property.
Yeah, and I'm
Let's not debate, ladies and
see,
gentlemen.
there we go.
It will
There we
be.
go. There we go.
Process, I have ruled that he is not in conflict. And if you would continue on with the presentation, we'll move on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I'm not sure the council is aware, but when I was before you last, I was seeking guidance and a acknowledgement that my building development permit was in good standing. And I was under the understanding I was also asking for the building permit also to be established as in good standing. And it turned out I was listening to the staff recommendations, and staff recommended that the development permit was in fact in good standing, but the building permit was not. And so I sought to go through the process of renewing or starting a new building permit. And one of the issues that comes out of that, starting from scratch on a building permit in 2025, is the building is subject to 2024 step code. Whereas when I initiated the project, it was subject to 2020 step code, or 2020 or 2018. So it was, so my building permit that was granted in 2020 met a lower standard, especially with respect to energy compliance, and there's some seismic issues. There's all kinds of stuff. And the most important thing is that to do a renovation of almost any scale these days, you're required to hire an architect and/or engineer in order to get a letter of assurance, so that the municipality is not in jeopardy if their inspector signs off on something that may or may not be down the road viable. And so this is a pattern that's been emerging through all of the municipalities across the country. And so with me in a position where I'm looking at this building in 2025, trying to get to a place where it would have an occupancy permit, even with a nominal occupancy as planned, which is basically storage, it's cost prohibitive. It doesn't make any economic sense in 2025 to keep the building. Even, heaven forbid, I try and put a restaurant as envisioned or a bar in there, it gets very, very expensive because the building is not insulated, it's brittle, it's heavy, it's concrete block, and it's high. And so it's just not a really good use case for what I was originally intending to do in 2020. And so what I'm before you to tell you is just by way of an update is I won't be progressing with this idea of turning it into a nominal use structure. One of the other side issues is because the shed roof that was between the car wash and the main building was taken down because it was rotten, it now turns it into two buildings. So now there's two building permits required. And it just gets very, very complicated quickly, notwithstanding the fact that it's a brownfield. So what I have as an asset is basically the slab sewer connection, the water connection. Slabs are useful because it's a brownfield. You can't excavate on the property. You can use just the slabs to do whatever you want, so long as you're within the zoning. You're not allowed to change the zoning in a brownfield situation. But the government's been pretty clear that provided you're within zoning and you're not excavating, you can carry on. And so that's what I intend to do. And I'm going to be before council with a proposal, which I toured Portland last month and looking at something, a phenomenon in Portland, which has been driving a lot of energy into areas around food. And it's called a food pod, which are basically a location, a large location that has food trucks assembled in a courtyard setting with family style seating. They're really, really popular. There's, I think, 4 or 5 that I saw that were packed. And cities in Bend and all over the states, and I think even in Canada, are starting to recognize that that's a really good use of a property, especially the one like mine. So I'm going to be before council presenting that. And I just wanted to give you the photos and sort of I've got 5 copies. I'll pass them out. Take them with you and take a look at them. That's kind of where I'm heading with this project. And the other thing I have going on is in part of this pivot away from the building was building a food truck in order to get some sort of economic viability out of that property. And so the food truck, I just received my operator's permit today. And so I'm excited about that. And so that's sort of going to be the prototype food truck, see how it goes, see how it's received locally, and then expand out from there. And that's it.
Thank you for that. I'm sure there will be some questions from council. Anyone? Councillor Sandu.
Hi.
Just a question, something that was brought up at the last time you were here was, your equipment is out front. Is that left out overnight?
Yeah.
Like all those, is that a concern? Like
I'm there overnight, so.
Are you?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
something-
and I'm not concerned. It's heavy. I wouldn't get any work done if I had to put it away every night. A lot of people come around and go, hey, what's going on? But so far so good. So it's been great. We're almost done with the food truck, so
Okay.
should be,
Okay,
you know.
thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Frisbee?
Yeah, just with your stuff being left outside. So as you know, quite a few people use that as a cut through because they don't know where property lines are and stuff. At the last meeting, I raised that it is a concern that people are going to walk through there and get hurt.
Mhm.
Is there any way at least we can get that area fenced off, or at least tools put away at the end of the day? Like there's things like utility knives left out that kids can just grab and things like that. So that's a real concern to us.
A utility knife?
Yeah, utility knife. Yeah.
Like a box cutter or something like that?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So as I mentioned in the last time you brought that up, that's fine if you want to address South Shore Road and the main highway. I can fence it, put a chain link fence up, and do whatever we want there. The problem is on Darnell, it's on the property line. So you're facing a situation where are you going to start encroaching onto the street? I brought it up with Joe back in the day. We've kicked the idea around. It's moot anyway. I'm closing up. We're in the process of closing it up and getting ready for demolition at some point when I get my the environmental stuff signed off. But you brought it up before. I didn't hear any good ideas on how we do that. Make it worse. People aren't cutting through there as much as I think you imagine they are. I'm there all the time. Most people stop and ask questions and encourage me, but don't, and come for some free lumber. But at this point, I don't see people, meandering around grabbing box knives and stuff. But I hear you. I hear what you're saying. I just don't see it being practical at this point. But if you wish to force the issue, you're welcome to.
Follow up or?
Yeah, I guess your plans are great, and we have seen a number of them. So, but my main concern is that we're not seeing any improvement to the main building, which was the car wash, which is the one that is the eyesore. I
Sorry,
think it's an eyesore.
Which is the eyesore? Which building?
The garage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there any plans to close that in or make it look, any better than it does now, or the road truck, the food truck's just going to surround them, and
Well,
when are we going to see some progress?
Okay. So first off, when I went to, I don't know if you saw the cedar window opening being put in there, that was 2 months ago. And Alex showed up and demanded that I put down my tools, stop doing it. So what do you do with that? I said, okay. And it was just adamant about it. And I said, okay, I'm trying to close it up. Yeah, too bad. Go get a building permit. It's not that easy. I've had lots of ideas about this property because this property is a very difficult problem to solve. It's a money pit and no one will buy it. I'm the fool that bought it. And I'm trying to now it happens to be front and center. So everybody sees it. But if you want to start looking at what's an eyesore and what your standards are, I mean, this is a project, and I've done work in the past. If you'd spend any time looking at the work I have done in the past, see it online. I do beautiful work, left, to my own devices. But when I'm stopped by people like Joe Fernandez over trees or whatever the issue is, it's incessant. And so, I made peace with Joe last summer, moved the trees. And, here I am. I'm still here, and I'm still hearing from guys like you who are like, we're in my grill 4 years ago because you wanted to use the parking or maybe your trucks turn around. And I know you're the guy with the ice cream. I know you don't own the building. Bill owns the building. But, I don't know who's telling, when I've got someone weed eating over there and they telling them to get the F off the property when they're on that side. I don't know who that is, but I'm just saying it's antagonistic. You and I have had words over this, and full well I'm going to get into the tube business as soon as I get lights on there. So you're going to have nice, healthy competition. You know it. I know it.
Okay, let's stick to the point.
But I think that's the recusal issue.
There's no need for disrespect
It's,
between the two of you. I will call this meeting if there is no respect. I will not sit for that.
Fair enough.
If you have a personal issue, take it outside. Respectfully, Councillor Frisbee.
I just want to clarify because that paints me in somewhat of a conflict. Me and Mr. Hallett have spoken once before. We have not come into any kind of conflict whatsoever. I don't have a problem. What I would, if you want to start up any kind of business that competes against any of my businesses, I would love to see it. I just want that property cleaned up. Or you could start up an ice cream / tube shack. That'd be fantastic. Just clean it up.
What have you done for me to help me through this process? You're fully aware of the trouble I've been having trying to get a permit renewed. It's arbitrarily set for, oh, sorry, we can't renew it, can't help
It's
you.
never your fault. That's what the problem is.
Pardon me?
It's never your fault.
It's never, what, I can get,
It's never your fault.
what does that statement mean?
It's always someone else's fault.
Yeah, I think that,
Oh,
Mr. Chair.
there you go again. I mean, honestly, I'm trying to have a discussion with you, bud.
okay, I'm going to call a short recess.
Oh, I'm happy to talk with you.
Can we start the Zoom up again, please? Miss Roach? Are we okay? My apologies if I raised my voice, but I thought that was getting out of hand, and again, I apologize. Furthermore, I think if we have yourself meet with our staff with some of the concerns that were brought up at the previous meeting, in a construction site, I think it's imperative that safety be the first and foremost. And I feel that that has been lacking on that site for some time, whether it's fencing or whether it's containing the building. That is the major concern that we are getting from residents. We don't, we're not trying to impact the business plan. But what is frustrating, Mike, is that from 2005, when the building permit, or 2020, it's 5 years and the plan is consistently changing. As you had stated, the building is the problem. So we are trying to work with you to accommodate some sort of economic activity within that facility, but also taking into consideration the complaints and the problems that we get addressed to. So nothing disrespectful at all is intended, and I hope you don't take it that way. We're trying to see a finalized position on this moving forward. So please accept my apology for raising my voice, and you as well, Director Frisbee, or I just demoted you. Councillor Frisbee. Well, I was gonna send you to the regional district, but if you have anything else to add, I'll allow you.
Yeah, I'm passionate about the project because it has been a very long haul and it's front and center, so everyone sees your business. But you have the economics of doing a development. You don't have to look any further than the physio building that went in, how much money that it cost them to build a single story 2-unit place, millions. And so you've got this eyesore that when I took it on was an eyesore. It wasn't going to ever be anything other than an eyesore. And I've spent hard-earned money trying to get it moved forward. And I've had my setbacks, self-inflicted or otherwise. But this profile of this building, you know, all of the lead paint was carefully removed. All of the funky drywall and everything was taken out of there. This whole thing should never have been, you know, standing in the first place. And so at this point, it's the same plan, the same development permit that I applied for and received in 2020. I would be carrying on with the same building permit I applied for in 2020 if I was allowed to, but I'm not. I have to start from scratch. And this is something that the council with staff could decide on their own. You know what? Let's renew Mike's building permit because there is no statute. It is completely municipal. And I have spoken at length about this, saying, hey, is there anything we can do here? Because there's no, and what I heard back was, no, if we do this for you, we have to do it for everybody. And that's not an argument that I'm satisfied with. So I'm moving forward and I consult with architects and, trying, and I hope you understand that the step code 2024 process has caused anyone thinking of building anything to require an architect or an engineer. You can't get an architect or an engineer on the phone because they're all swamped analyzing building codes. Like you have to analyze, you can't just draw something and have the inspector call it good. No. It all has to be assured and set. And so that process has emerged in the last 4 years. Right. So I'm not blaming it. Okay. I'm just explaining it, that it's tricky. So I don't have a building permit. I can't do anything to that property. I'm about to close it in to accommodate the fact that what you said last month. So we've got all the lumber, and I'm going to do it without a building permit because I can't get one. And if Alex finds out about it, oh my, he's going to come down and I'm going to have to say, Alex, pound sand, or I'm going to stop what I'm doing. I don't know. And that's where I'm at. I'm stuck. I can't put a nail. I'm allowed to paint it. Notice how it's been painted. That was all I was allowed to. I can't put the fascia on. I can't do anything. And so it's frustrating. And so there's frustration mixed with passion because I don't want to quit. But, help me. And I've been asking for help. I'm not blaming. I'm just saying is when you say, hey, your permit's no good, there are consequences downstream for me. And engineers are expensive, letters of assurance are expensive. It drives the cost of everything way up and it makes that completely uneconomic. So, you know, I'm this close from putting a for sale sign on it again. And that's going to sit there because no one's going to buy it. And that is an eyesore by definition. That's a development economic eyesore. So we don't want that. I want to finish it. If you've had any chance to have a look at the food truck, it's gorgeous. You know, that's what I do. But I'm limited to a 20 by 10 foot trailer because I don't need a building permit to do that. Oh, wow. So that's all you can do. And that's why there are food trucks everywhere, because nobody can get any kind of old funky building permitted anymore. And so I appreciate you listening to me, and I hope you can hear through the passion that it is just practical difficulties. I'm not trying to, you know.
And therein lies the problem of the trickle-down effects, which you spoke of, the step code, which have been implemented and passed down to municipalities to incorporate into our zoning bylaws, into our building permits, et cetera. So with our current building permit timeline is 2 years to have that completed. That's policy. That's our procedure. If it expires, then you have to reapply. Unfortunately, without amending that policy or procedure, that is how we are bound by our policies.
Right. And I'm arguing that the policy should change.
No, and
Because
if that's the
it's
case, then it would go to the APC for consideration, for input, and then come back to council and we would discuss that. But currently we're bound by what we have in our bylaws, in our zoning bylaws, in our policies, and in our building permit regulations. So unfortunately, we are tied similar to you with the trickle-down effects of the step code, et cetera. Appreciate you presenting tonight.
Thank you very much. Thanks for
And we'll go from there. Thank you. Hello, sir. Looking online, we have a present.
Yes.
um,
Good evening, Your Worship.
All yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me and for allowing me to come into you virtually instead of being there in person. I appreciate that very much. Mayor McGonigal, my name is Alan Nielsen. You and I have met before in your capacity as director at the regional district. And nice to see you again and nice to see council. I am here to make a presentation on the regional district's economic development program. And I've been asked by the board to come and speak to each of the municipal councils on the program, hence my attendance here. Allow me, if I could, I have a presentation. May I share it from my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Your Worship, allow me to make a presentation just on the economic development Cowichan review that I've been asked to do for the regional district. We're good way through the review already. I presented to the board of directors halfway through on this, and that was back at the beginning of summer, and I've been speaking to each of the municipal councils. Typically, when we do a review of a regional district service, we focus on the regional district board of directors as the governing body, which has both the legal authority over the service and the responsibility to provide the service and to make policy for the service. The board asked me to reach out to each of the member municipalities as well, because this is a service that includes all jurisdictions of the regional district, including the municipalities. And because municipalities sign on to a service with the concurrence of the entire council, it was deemed important by the regional district for me to reach out and get some feedback on the service from the councils. So hence my appearance this evening. I'll give a brief overview of what I'll be speaking about this evening, Your Worship. The first is just to outline the assignment that I've been asked to do for the regional district, talk a little bit about economic development Cowichan. I have a sense that council and staff at the town of Lake Cowichan will have a good understanding of what the service is now, but I'll just go through at a high level just to make sure we're all on the same page. Talk a bit about the context, some of my preliminary findings on the service review, and then get some feedback from council. With respect to the assignment, I've been asked to review the economic development function as a service or a set of services at the regional district, and is referred to as economic development Cowichan. In my review, I've been asked to assess the existing service levels, so what it is the service does and at what levels, and what's the value that those service levels or the existing services bring. I've been asked to identify potential changes to the scope of services, so the types of services that are undertaken, and then the levels of services that are undertaken and provided by the regional district. And I've also been asked to have a look at it to give some advice on the delivery model. Right now, Economic Development Cowichan is delivered as a service of the regional district in-house by regional district staff. Economic Development Cowichan, I'll just give a brief overview of the service. It is a regional service, a true regional service, in the sense it has full participation from all of the electoral areas and all of the municipalities of the Cowichan Valley Regional District. It's governed by the Board of Directors. We don't have an advisory committee in place, so the board is the sole governing body and the ultimate governing body for the service, as it is with most services. We have costs that are apportioned on the basis of converted assessment, which is quite typical for regional district services. And what that means is just slightly over 3% of the total requisition is paid for by the town of Lake Cowichan. And we have, that's not unique to the town of Lake Cowichan. We have a number of other contributions at that size. And then we have, as one we expect, some of the municipalities, in particular North Cowichan, which pays a larger share. We have the activities and our scope of services, the things that we do through that service are guided by a strategic plan and that was strategic plan. It was done actually back in 2018, just prior to COVID, but we're doing an update now. So the strategic plan that we have in place looks at 5 different categories of activities that are undertaken in providing the service. One is called BRE, and what that stands for is business retention and expansion. So efforts undertaken by economic development staff to work with existing businesses to help them stay strong and to expand. Sector development, we have a number of different economic sectors in our regional economy, as we do in most regional economies. We have agriculture, we have tourism, technology, wood and manufacturing, and those kinds of, and forestry, of course, in the Cowichan Valley, those sectors. And so what efforts can be undertaken to keep those sectors strong and help them develop further? Strengthening communities. Across the Cowichan Valley Regional District, we have a number of different agencies in our economic development ecosystem, some very small, some larger. We work with those agencies to strengthen their capacity. Communicating our story, both across our membership, that is the municipalities and electoral areas, but also more importantly to the world, as it were, through materials that we produce on the Cowichan Valley and reasons to invest in the Cowichan Valley. And then finally, the service looks to align with the existing CVRD strategic plan, the strategies that are set out there. I mentioned that there is a current process underway to update the strategic plan. So one of the things, the key item that has been added in the draft, the new draft, is reconciliation. How do we work with our First Nations partners to achieve reconciliation through action aimed at economic development? I will mention that I have talked to a number of different First Nations economic development organizations, including the Subaset, as part of my consultations. And I've met with a number of different individuals and agencies involved in economic development across the CVRD. Just to zero down or drill down a little bit to give a sense of what some of those activities that fit into those categories look like in practice, we've got creating partnerships that I mentioned with First Nations, but also with chambers and other agencies involved in economic development. What can we do together to leverage the efforts of each other? Providing or producing information resources, whether it's state of the economy, profiles of sectors, information advice on tariffs, working with tariffs. Convening tables. And one thing that we often see in regional services is the idea of being a facilitator, convener of tables to focus on different topics. And so we had the Workforce Summit, for example, 2025, a whole bunch of other tables created on an ongoing basis. We have strategy development for different issues to address different issues, workforce housing, internet, cellular, those kinds of issues that are important to different parts of the region. We provide, or the service provides, studies on needs and opportunities, and it often gets funding to provide these studies. So a combination of need assessment is an example. Staff in the service respond to investment inquiries that come in from outside of the region. There's sector support, looking at different sectors. So the Cowichan Green Community Farm is one example in the agri and agritourism and agri-food sector. A number of different joint initiatives, whether it's the Circular Economy Accelerator Program or some other joint initiative undertaken by the CVRD through Economic Development Cowichan with other agencies, provincial, even federal in some cases. Local business support, so economic development officers or the staff from the service reaching out and connecting with individual businesses, understanding what their needs are, trying to find resources and help that they need in order to expand and be strong. And then finally, sub-regional economic strategies. So looking at village core strategies, often in the electoral areas that don't have their own separate municipal governments, of course, but also in some other parts of the region. So that gives a sense, Your Worship, just of the types of activities that go on in economic development, Cowichan. And I mention them only to ensure that council and that we're all on the same page with respect to what kinds of things the service does now. Let me just set a little bit of context for the service review and speaks a little bit to why it was important to undertake this review. One is that we are in a large region, of course, geographically large region with several jurisdictions, rural, urban character. We see quite a split there, a range of needs that align with the different rural and urban centers, and a range of interests and expectations as well on what the service should do for the different areas. We have a different understandings of economic development. So in other words, what do we think economic development is? And that helps to set the context for this, because understanding what the scope is and what it should be is important. Our context is characterized as well by a tight and in fact getting tighter, tightening budgets resulting in competition for services. Every municipality, every regional district across the province is in that context, and we're no different. And then finally, our context is identified as or characterized by a service that is inherently difficult to measure, because when we think about economic development, a lot of it is making investment now that may not pay off for some time, and trying to connect the dots between resources expended now and outcomes later can be difficult at times to measure. Our context is also identified or characterized by a relatively limited service. We've got a small service in terms of the budget. We've got a total of about $700,000 of tax requisition for this budget, and also the numbers of staff. We've got about 2.5 FTE in this service, not a big service. And then finally, we've got an economic development ecosystem, which helps to frame our context for the review, with lots of different agencies, varying capacities, some very advanced, others a little bit more nascent. Some of the findings, Your Worship, that I've been presenting to the governing bodies of the region, Town of Lake Cowichan Council included, and all the other municipal councils and the regional board, that from my discussions with various stakeholders, various affected agencies in economic development, are as follows. The first is that when connecting with and reviewing materials and connecting with different individuals and affected parties, what I found is there's a lot of uncertainty around what is economic development and what is economic development Cowichan and what does it do exactly. So there's some things to unpack there. On the whole, directors for the regional districts and also in the jurisdictions too, the jurisdictions themselves, so the municipal councils, have expressed a less than optimal feeling that there's been a less than optimal role in helping to set priorities and giving direction to this study, or to this, I beg your pardon, to the service. And that we saw in some of the comments made with respect to the strategic planning exercise that is underway for the service. Opportunities desired by decision makers to have more input into setting direction and setting priorities for the service. We have another finding is we've got a service in place right now that is quite small, but it has a broad scope of individual services or activities. Some of those are at a regional level, so broader, focused more on high level things, that focused more on upstream often, or looking at convening tables, looking at investment into sectors, recognizing that the benefits will be some time to come to fruition, or could be at least. And then also at the local level, dealing with individual businesses. So we've got a small staff and we've got a lot of different responsibilities. And my sense is that there's a need to tighten the focus. We've got, picking up a little bit more, expanding on my previous point, we've got our regional economic development efforts, which most affected parties I've spoken to have a great deal of support for. The idea of providing information to help others make investment decisions, to help others navigate tariffs, to help others understand the state of the economy and what opportunities may be, to look at labor, talent attraction to match needs, labor needs with opportunities. Those kinds of efforts are seen as important by most. there's less support about the local, and are we doing those well, reaching out and dealing with individual businesses? Can those be left to other agencies in the ecosystem of economic development? Another finding, Your Worship, is the notion that, or the idea that the focus on sectors and what we can do to help develop those sectors and keep those strong is very strong for some sectors, and agriculture is an example of that, not as strong for other sectors. And so maybe focusing more on those sectors, we can really impact in a very positive way.
Just
The
before
intelligent,
we enter,
yes,
Mr. Nielsen, we've gone past 10 minutes looking to council.
okay.
I want to have an extension if possible. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Carry on.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm grateful. I'll be just 2 more minutes, and then I'll stop talking and listen to council and hear your views. Just briefly then, intelligence. So the provision of knowledge, the advocacy, that role there, that coordination, that convening, partnering, building partnerships, all of those are viewed by affected parties as important functions for this service. Oversight and integration is important to most of the individuals and groups I spoke to. So the idea of whatever happens in economic development, Cowichan needs to also be integrated with what's happening in the regional district, that alignment of policies, that alignment of efforts. And that comment perhaps informs our choice of delivery model. Do we keep it in-house where that integration may be strongest? Finally, communication to board and member municipalities. The idea of needing to have more communication so that our jurisdictions, our councils that are participating in this service, and that also the directors, the board of directors of the regional district itself, but then also other stakeholders of the service, understand what the service is doing, understand why it's important, if it is indeed deemed to be valuable and important, and help to build support for the service. I will just mention as well, just one final finding here. I beg your pardon. One final finding is that while we focus on the types of services and the types of activities we provide or undertake in order to promote economic development or the economy of the Cowichan Valley, we also want to be aware of, and I heard this from a number of different affected parties, of the barriers that we may inadvertently place in the way of economic development. And so approval processes or policies we have in place, those kinds of things that may exist across the region that we always want to be aware of and helping to address so that we can further align with the goals of economic development. Your Worship, I'm going to stop there. I'm the kinds of questions that I have, not to limit discussion or limit input or feedback from council, but simply just to perhaps prompt it. Does council feel that the economic development Cowichan, the agency, the services it provides, does provide value to the town of Lake Cowichan? And if so, what types of activities should, in council's view, the economic development Cowichan really focus on in terms of regional versus local and or other specific activities in that suite of activities that are particularly important to council? I will stop there, Your Worship, and I'll stop sharing the screen, and I look forward to hearing input and feedback from council.
Thank you very much. Before turning to my colleagues for questions or comments, I want to thank you for joining us from Kelowna, I believe.
Thank you. That's correct. That's correct, Your Worship.
Just if you would, if you can address me as mayor.
Okay, Mayor.
There's one, I don't like being your worship because I'm not worshipped.
Okay, I shall do that, Mayor McGonigal. Thank
But
you.
no, I think that is an antiquated endearment, and I hope they can change that at some point. But I appreciate your candidness and your openness. You have presented to the board, and some of the questions that you raised were brought forward by the board of directors at the regional table.
Correct.
One of the points was, as a regional service and a regional function, there are also contributing municipalities who have also economic development within their portfolio. So feel that it is a double taxation for the economic development aspect of the region as a whole. When some would suggest that perhaps it should be looked at as a sub-regional entity, focusing on the electoral areas as a focus for economic development. Your thoughts on that?
Thanks, Mayor. It is a legitimate perspective. It is understandable when a municipality is investing in its own service. That's entirely understandable that there could be both the perception and in fact, a duplication of some levels of service. We do see in other places that have regional economic development functions, a coexistence of regional models and local models. And what's very important when we have those, and what's important for the success of that broader model, is to ensure that both places are doing completely different things, so we don't have that overlap. At a regional level, and in my region, you mentioned that I'm chiming in from Kelowna here. In the Central Okanagan, we have the Central Economic Development Commission, which operates at a regional level and looks very much at providing information on investment to help decision makers across the region to profile and to help build regional economic sectors, and to really deal with some of the bigger issues that affect all jurisdictions within the region. We also have local economic development functions through the municipalities here that focus more on the specific goals of an individual council as it relates to its own business environment at a local level, some of the local businesses and what the municipality can do to assist with their prosperity to ensure that they're able to expand. And so we see a little bit of a differing of roles there and a different focus. So I think it is possible for those two levels to coexist, and I think they can support one another and build off of one another. I think the key is to ensure that there's very clear mandates and the separation of tasks between those two levels.
Thank you for that. Turn to council, see if there's any questions or comments. Councillor Frisbee.
Yeah, thank you. So there's a couple programs within economic development that I think are kind of overlooked and are a benefit to our community. In particular, the sports tourism grant. We do get quite a bit of money back through for our junior baseball and hockey events. So that is actually quite a bit of money every year, and that's one that I think does benefit our community. The partnership with Tourism Cowichan seems to be or 4VI, I should say, does seem to be benefiting us now as businesses are reaching out. The one question I've got for you, and you may not have for me tonight, I know that the CVRD were doing a connectivity study, not so much with transport, but cellular connectivity. Obviously, we're kind of isolated here from Tanser Road to Scott's Falls. We have no cellular service, and that, if we're trying to build on the tourism side of things, a trail network, or from a business side of things, having to say, I'll call you back in 13 minutes, does put up some hurdles there. Has there been anything produced from that connectivity study?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Frisbee. Yes, I don't have the exact answer for that, but I will get you the answer and make sure that goes through your administrator to get back to council. I don't believe it has at this point. I think there's further work being done on that, but I want to confirm that before I commit to that.
Thank you for that. Follow up?
Yeah, just one follow up. I know that we've spoken about this before with the CVRD, but there's a kind of perception that the CVRD do provide economic development services to Lake Cowichan, but it's not so much action, it's more studies and things like that. And I think that's what we struggle with as a community. We're like, well, what do we actually get for the money? And, I've highlighted a few things tonight, but one thing was there's communities in the CVRD that are very much like ours that may want extra economic development support. And there was kind of an initiative floated that, those communities could band together to create a position so that it's not a full-time burden on the community. Has there been any more discussion about that at all?
Thanks very much to Councillor Frisbee. No, there hasn't been any direct discussion on that, but this is exactly the kind of feedback that's important. So thank you. And I have heard that from some other groups as well. So that is something that we do see in some services, not necessarily in Cowichan Valley, but in some other places. So that idea of targeted resources to provide a certain part of a service or services within a broader framework. And so what I'm taking from that feedback is that would be something that would be worthwhile considering a little bit.
Thank you for that. Any further questions? I'm going to come in again. You spoke of reconciliation and updating your strategic plan. And I think it's imperative to look at adjacent communities such as Subasset First Nation and the opportunities that could be afforded collaboratively between not only the town of Lake Cowichan, the regional district, and the Subasset First Nation on tourism especially. When we see the impacts that tourism has on the town of Lake Cowichan in July and August, it is significant and maybe the stepping stone that helps businesses get over the slow, busy season when we roll up the sidewalks at 9 o'clock at night. What sort of implant of reconciliation would be anticipated in that strategic plan update?
Thank you, Mayor. That strategic plan update, when it talks about reconciliation, it is speaking very much about the partnerships that you just talked about. And I have actually reached out and spoken with Superset and with the economic development folks there. And so I think that we're going to, through the economic development program, that focus, assuming that plan continues, and I have no doubt that reconciliation will continue to be a focus of whatever plan comes forward ultimately to the board. That focus on partnerships and how to build the kinds of alliances you talked about would be key as part of that reconciliation.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And you would be okay if council had a follow-up question afterwards to email you?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. I would be very happy to receive that, and I'll make sure to answer it.
Because it never fails. We'll leave the room and say, oh, I should have said that. So yeah, we look forward to some more correspondence, and thank you for your service.
Thank you for your time this evening.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
With that, we have moved from our delegations to correspondence. Under correspondence A, Mr. Thomas, would you like to introduce this? It's Save the Date Health Forward Summit coming up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Afternoon, Council. This is an invitation from the Regional District of Nanaimo for Council's participation or staff participation in a conference focused on healthcare in the Central and North Vancouver Island area, which would include the town of Lake Cowichan. Council does have discretion if it wishes to attend. We will have a staff person present. I'm scheduled to be away during that, but I will ask someone to attend on my behalf.
Thank you for that. So you're not looking for any recommendation tonight. That's just for information. I hope that as many of us as possible can attend this conference and utilize some of the ideas within there as we move forward. And also, we have a letter on the Legislative Assembly of British Columbia, the roundtable invitation on September 24th, 2025. And that will be during UBCM in Victoria. So hopefully as many of us as possible can attend again. I look forward to that too. Also from the city of Pitt Meadows. It was a late item. Asking specifically for a resolution to call on the provincial government to raise agricultural funding in BC. So that will be coming to the resolutions package at UBCM. Looking forward to that discussion. Nothing else is needed from that. But there was also some correspondence received on the development permit, which we will discuss later when that comes to that item. So keep that on there, please. With that, I'm going to go to council and committee reports. Turn to Councillor Frisbee for Committee of the Whole.
Yeah, I'd like to hereby move the following minutes from the Committee of the Whole meeting from Tuesday, September 9th, 2025, that the committee recommend that council direct staff to schedule a strategic planning workshop in October 2025 with council and senior leadership team for the purpose of reviewing the 2021-2026 strategic plan, assessing performance to date and confirming strategic priorities for the next 16 months to guide the 2025-2026 budget deliberations. That the committee recommend that the staff report on the Union of BC Municipalities Conference preparations be received and filed, that the committee recommend that the town of Lake Cowichan accept the invitation to join the other member municipality meetings at the 2025 UBCM conference, and that the committee recommend that the town of Lake Cowichan extend reciprocal invitation to partner municipalities who may share an interest in their town's approved meeting topics. Councillor Sandhu requested that the town look at available grants for the purchase of a generator, and the CAO stated that the matter will be included in the strategic plan, that the committee recommend the approval of the Lake Cowichan Fire Department incident report in the amount of $7,964.16 for July, that the committee recommend approval of the Lake Cowichan Fire Department incident report in the amount of $14,402.21 for August 2025. Councillor Vamaka requested that fencing requirements at 63 Cowichan Lake Road be undertaken by bona fide contractors, which staff will take into consideration. The matter of access to Point Ideal Drive through Fern Road was discussed. The committee directed that the matter of access be referred to the strategic plan discussions. That the committee recommend the town of Lake Cowichan send a letter to the Honourable Mike Farnworth, Minister of Transportation and Transit, on its concerns over the prolonged labour dispute, with copies to be provided to the Minister of Labour and Cowichan Valley Regional District. With that, I move that.
That was a busy meeting, was it? You're moving those, looking for a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Sandhu. Any discussion on those? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion passes. Moving to Cowichan Lake Recreation, Councillor Sandhu.
Thank you. Our meetings that was scheduled for September 22nd is being rescheduled to October 20th due to UBCM.
Okay, thank you for that. Advisory Planning Commission? No, let's go to Vancouver Island Regional Library first. Councillor Vamaka.
There's a meeting this Saturday for the library board that I'll be attending,
Is that a virtual meeting or in person?
a virtual meeting.
Thank you. Now we'll go to the Advisory Planning Commission. Councillor Sandhu.
Our meeting is this Thursday at 4 p.m.
Thank you for that. Moving on to the Cowichan Valley Regional District. I'll report on the committee of the whole. There was a delegation on the Cowichan Women's Health Collective. It was an update on the work being done today. It was also moved and seconded that the development of an emergency shelter and supportive housing siting policy be funded to a maximum of $50,000 through Function 100 Strategic Investment, and that the board directs staff to request Cowichan Housing Association allocate funding for siting policy work through the annual CHA, Cowichan Housing Association, contribution agreement. It was also moved and seconded that $10,000 from the 2025 Function 131 Climate Action Program be allocated to support the 2025 Cowichan Region Climate Gathering. Also, that it be recommended to the board that $54,000 from the Function 532, which is the Drinking Water and Watershed Protection Program, be allocated to the Regional District of Nanaimo on the CVRD's proportionate share of the Phase 3 water budget study for the Yellow Point, Cedar, Cassidy area. Also, that it be recommended to the board on September 10th that a letter be provided to Indigenous Services Canada expressing the CVRD's support for Subasit's proposed addition to reserve, encompassing about 34 hectares in the Cowichan Lake District. Also, that staff engage with Subasit in relation to potential servicing agreements to be implemented following the addition to reserves. There's also a presentation on the Parks and Trails Wildfire Risk Assessment and Management Strategy. This was the initial report with recommendations coming and shared with the committee. We had second quarter reports on capital plan projects and strategic plan. And then from the board meeting, that the Cowichan Valley Regional District provide a letter of support for the City of Duncan for the grant application to UBCM Strategic Priorities Fund for the Cairnsmore Roundabout. Also a letter from the Ministry of Housing and Municipal Affairs confirming electoral areas E and G have been approved to opt out of the principal residence requirements for short-term rentals. Also moved and seconded that it be recommended to the board that CBRD enter into an agreement with the town of Lake Cowichan regarding the facility booking and use of the Little League and Centennial Ballpark fields located beside Cowichan Lake Sports Arena, effective June 1, 2025 to May 31st, 2030. There were also a number of electoral specific bylaws, which I do not have an opportunity to vote on. Also moved and seconded that the following directors be registered to attend the 2025 State of the Island Economic Summit hosted by Vancouver Island Economic Alliance. And those directors were named, and that the budget provided and look into other funding options. Also, community plan, Cowichan Valley Regional District, community plan for electoral area bylaw 2024. Changes as outlined in the staff report were accepted. The director's specific comments submitted at the end of July and reviewed by staff for the EASC was requested to be brought back for further discussion on the harmonized OCP. It was also moved and seconded that board director remuneration be adjusted annually based on the previous year's Victoria BC Consumer Price Index. Also that a board vice chair stipend of $7,750 be added effective January 1st each year and adjusted annually based on the year's BC Victoria CPI. Also that the salary remuneration be set to the 50th percentile for local government cohorts for electoral area and municipal directors and the chair. It was also moved that the remuneration rates be reviewed once per term by an external party, with each review to include a comparative analysis of remuneration for elected officials at similar regional districts, which be determined at the direction of the board, and that reviews be initiated no later than 1 year prior to the next election. Also, that the existing director remuneration bylaw be amended to incorporate these recommendations. It was also moved and seconded that staff be directed to explore options regarding a caregiver allowance and report back for future consideration. And the reason that came forward was the impact of single family mothers not being able to run or et cetera, looking for childcare. That's an option they were looking to implement as well, but has to come back for endorsement. I declared a conflict of interest as I'm the board's vice chair, and I left the meeting. And subsequently, the addition of a vice chair stipend was added effective January 1st of each year and adjusted annually. Also, it was moved and seconded that the board chair compensation be increased by $7,221 to come into effect January 1st, 2026 and be adjusted annually based on the previous year's Victoria CPI. Chair Segal declared a conflict as she is the sitting CBRD board chair and left the meeting. It was also moved and seconded that staff be directed to research and report to the governance committee potential compensation for committed chairs and vice chairs of committees. Also moved and seconded that the end date of the extension agreement with Marpole Transport or solid waste transportation be extended to October 1st, 2025 to September 30th, 2027. Also, a number of bylaws were presented and passed, mostly focused on electoral areas. Any questions? That was a short meeting, that one. Seeing none, we'll move on to the community outreach team. Councillor Austin?
Thank you. The meeting is this Thursday at 9:30 a.m. at Community Services.
Thank you. Our Cowichan, I have nothing to report there. Cowichan Watershed Board, Councillor Sandu.
Thank you. Our next meeting is September 29th. And this Friday, I have a Cowichan Watershed Society meeting at our watershed office.
Now turn to Councillor Frisbee, who was the town's representative on our recent exchange with our sister city in Otaki, Hokkaido. And prior to that, I'm going to go and get the gift that we received from the town, just so I can show it off. And I will let you continue in my absence.
All right. How long do I have to talk for? You better run. Yeah, for someone who didn't grow up in Lake Cowichan, there's a few things that you don't really understand until you're actually a part of it. And that is definitely true for the Otaki trip. It's truly a once in a lifetime trip. And there's now students that were a part of the exchange as students who are now taking their kids as part of the exchange. So this is a generational program now. And I hope everyone can understand the importance of the exchange to the people of Otaki. There's an entire totem pole park that is dedicated to the partnership with Lake Cowichan. We've now got an itinerary for the when we are hosting Otaki next year, and we're in the early stages of forming a hosting committee for that. I do understand that we're dealing with a larger hosting budget and a larger municipality when we do travel over there, but we may need to increase our budget for hosting. And we're in the early plans of that, especially for the banquet portion of the visit. But the committee will get together and recommend a budget for council to consider. So all in all, a fantastic trip, and I think a lot of great experiences for I guess it was 10 students and 4 adults. And yeah, I just want to thank the rest of the council for sending me over there. It was awesome. And we got the present. We did present Otaki with a Kraken jersey and a blanket from the Sibatsa First Nation, and they gave us a kimono as a present. I thought you were going to come in wearing it, to be honest. No?
I don't look good in a kimono.
Yeah, I guess we'll maybe hang this up somewhere in the town office. So yeah, cool present.
Many thanks to Otaki for the exchange of the gifts and the ongoing longest in BC twinning of town of Lake Cowichan and the town of Otaki. Does you have a question or addition? Councillor Austin.
Yes, I've been asking to have one of the Japanese tea sets put in the front office if possible, if we could have a small table. We have quite a few of them. Most of the stuff has gone to the museum, so there's quite a big display there. And I've started work on the 2027 group that will be going to Japan from here. And we have about 6 students already excited about getting ready. They do a lot of fundraising, bottle drives, bake sales, cheese sales, dances. This last group did a great job and raised all the money to pay for all their airfares, which is getting pretty expensive. So this has been going for 37 years now. And when they come here, we give them a really great time and let them know about our community, and they'll be here in October of next year. Unfortunately, they're only here for about 3 days, but we fill those 3 days. So
Thank you for that. Nothing else on that? Thank you, Councillor Frisbee. I'm sure you represented the town in a amicable way. So we're going to move on to staff reports, please. We have an application for a development variance permit. That would be DVP 2025-06 for 169 South Shore Road. Ms. Reynolds.
Mr. Mayor, I've got to declare a conflict of interest, and my company owns the property neighboring this one, and a parking plan may affect my personal interests, so I'm going to remove myself.
Thank you, Councillor Frisbee, for declaring that. We'll let you depart, and then we'll start the discussion and presentation. Ms. Reynolds, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. So yes, we have an application for a development variance permit for parking. This is for the property at 169 South Shore Road. The property is zoned commercial 1. It is approximately 581 square meters, or just over 6,200 square feet. The building. There's a total of 5 commercial units in the building. The zoning bylaw requires for that size of property a total of 12 parking stalls, 1 loading zone, and and included in the parking is 1 accessible stall. And the proponent, the applicant, is putting in an accessible stall and an accessible ramp as well to, for better accessibility to the property. There is a loading zone that is in the rear of the property. So the bylaw does allow for provision of cash in lieu of parking of $4,000 per stall. And that means that if, with the provision of cash in lieu, those stalls are essentially sort of they're paying for the ability to not have to provide the additional parking, and then they're applying to vary the difference or the remaining stalls. So on page 2 of the report, there's a table that shows you the breakdown. So we've got 12 parking stalls that are required. There's 6 stalls that are provided on site. The proponent is providing cash in lieu for 3 stalls of the $12,000. And so the variance request is then for a reduction of 3. The OCP does support a proposed reducing parking, and particularly in the cases where it would be a challenge for businesses to strictly comply. This is often the case in smaller communities when business owners are trying to use existing buildings and redevelop them. And so to meet the parking requirements can sometimes be a challenge. So the OCP envisions that the zoning bylaw provides the provision for cash in lieu for parking and reducing parking in the uptown core area, which is where this property is located. And the owner is planning to install a bicycle ramp, as mentioned, an accessible parking stall, and also installing that accessible access ramp into the building. And given the policy support in both the OCP and the regulatory support in the zoning bylaw, as the contract planner, I recommend support for the proposed variance. And notice was sent out pursuant to the approval procedure and notification bylaw. We did receive 3 letters from concerned members of the community, and 2 of which were specifically concerned with the reduction, sort of generally the impacts that it may have on sort of the surrounding neighborhood, the proximity to the high school, and that the area is sort of used as a drop-off area and so on. And then the one letter speaks to, I think it's the use of the area in the rear, or the loading zone being used as parking. And with regards to that one, I mean, the parking, if they're using it for parking and not loading, unless it becomes a sort of a real nuisance, that it becomes an enforcement issue, I suppose. But if that's how they choose to use it, then they end up having to jockey vehicles back and forth to establish the loading zone to be available. But again, there's concern with sort of the visibility because of the parked vehicles and its proximity to the corner. The 2 letters that are concerned with the reduction, again, sort of speaking generally to the area, and that the need for council to consider additional parking spots in the immediate area, perhaps using some of the cash in lieu funds to do this work. So I'll leave that with council.
Thank you very much. I'll turn to council for questions. Councilor Vomaka.
Question to our town planner. So what type of businesses are going to be in there? Because if it says specific 5 businesses, each of them needs 2 different parking spots. So if it's a businesses that are hairdressers, et cetera, that clients are going to be in there longer term, it's going to cause a parking problem. The one that's in the back that they classify as the loading zone, there's always a vehicle in there that actually blocks people walking on the sidewalk. So people with mobility issues, mothers with buggies, it's constantly, and you can't see the neighboring property of the South Shore Cabinetry trying to pull out. So that's quite a concern that I can't see that always being considered a loading zone. It's a blind zone in there. And so if we require each of those businesses to have 2 parking spots per our bylaw, that's 10 that we need. So to reduce it to 6, I don't think is a wise decision until we know what type of businesses are in there. I know the building well. My father owned it. And at the time that he built the addition, they requested 40 parking spots in that location. And he got them down to, I think it was 18 or 12. So now to go to, that was for one business. So now to go to 5 businesses and request only 2, I think we're going to have a potential problem.
Sure. So through the chair, so the zoning bylaw requires 2 parking stalls per 100 square meters of gross floor area. And that's sort of the standard for business and professional services uses, commercial retail, including liquor sales, repair services. A grocery store does have a higher requirement. So it was really based on the 2 per 100 square meters of gross floor area, bringing it up to, because it's 581 square meters, so rounding up to the 2 times 6, so the 12.
Follow up?
So just to follow up, so if there's 5 units and each man or owner or tenant takes up 1 spot each, because where do staff park?
Well, I'm just basing,
Yeah.
the requirements are based on the zoning bylaw.
Yeah,
So based on the 2 per 100 square meter of gross floor area. So again, depending on the business type, because they do change, and there is a requirement in zoning bylaw with a change of use that, parking would be revisited. But sometimes town isn't always aware of a change of use. Maybe it would typically come up with a business license
okay.
application. But yeah, the concern related to the blocking of the sidewalk is certainly a valid one. And I think that that's something that can be raised with the proponent.
Wonderful, thank you.
Anyone else? So with the provision of cash in lieu and the capital impacts of the parking study that was just recently implemented, could those funds be utilized to accommodate some of those recommendations within the parking study? To accommodate additional parking within the municipality?
Yes, I believe they could. I mean, that's that's certainly the intention of the of a cash in lieu fund, is to be able to resolve parking sort of it's not specific within a certain sort of proximity to like the subject property in this case. Yes.
And I believe in one of the letters, it spoke of a town-owned property adjacent to the Realtor on Point Ideal Road, and perhaps implementing that into a parking facility. Unfortunately, I believe that is a riparian area and a swamp area for consideration. I don't know that that would work, but that could be something to be investigated. And if it is not a riparian or SPIA or other allocated environmental site, perhaps some of those funds could be utilized to at least provide gravel parking within there, if possible, similar to the Centennial Park parking lot that we did there. Just something to consider should that and this move forward. Anyone else? Okay. No questions. No, sorry. At the end, please. Sorry. This is for council discussion and decision. We'll consider your question at the end. Appreciate it. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We could have Mr. Councillor Frisbee returned.
Like he was waiting for like the hammer to drop or something. Waiting for me usually.
Just wanted to give you a chance. Welcome back. Now we'll move to the other application. That's for development permit DP 2025-10, and that's on 279 Tell Road. I'll turn to our contract planner again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we have an application for a single-family home on 279 Tall Road. And it is within a watercourse streamside protection development permit area and natural hazard development permit area for steep slope and wildfire hazard. The applicant has provided in support of their application the geotechnical hazard assessment, riparian area protection assessment, wildfire hazard assessment. All of the reports are providing recommendations to minimize any negative impacts to the riparian areas and where possible enhance those areas. The wildfire assessment determined that the fire hazard on the property is moderate and therefore a development permit isn't required pursuant to the OCP for wildfire hazard because of that report. Again, notifications were sent to neighbors. We didn't receive any comment from anybody. And then there's a recommendation in the staff report or in the contract planner report to recommend approval subject to various conditions, that the development be completed in accordance both with the site plan, with the geotechnical hazard assessment, the riparian area protection regulation assessment report, the wildfire hazard assessment report, and then prior to any land alteration and building permit issuance, that they delineate the greater of the two setbacks, whether it's the SPIA boundary or the geotech boundary, with high visibility fencing to keep contractors and so on outside of there, and also to install sediment and erosion control measures to reduce any negative impacts to the stream. And then prior to occupancy, requiring registration on title of the geotechnical hazard assessment and watercourse protection section 219, and also a permanent delineation or demarcation of the SPIA adjacent to the property.
Thank you for that. Any questions or comments on this application? So you have some options there. Approve the development for the application, approve the development permit with additional requirements, or deny the development permit for this application. And your pleasure. Councillor Frisbee.
Yeah, I'd like to motion the recommendation. Am I going to have to read that out?
No, that's fine. We already had it read out. So you're moving approval of the application with the conditions as read by our contract planner. Seconded by Councillor Austin. Any further discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. Thank you. And now the topic that I believe most people are here for would be the town of Lake Cowichan zoning amendment bylaw 1122-2025, which may be reconsidered and adopted. Before we go, Councillor Sandu.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to recuse myself from this discussion due to a conflict of interest.
Please note, Councillor Sandu has declared a conflict and has removed herself from the discussions at 6:30 p.m. With that, I will turn to our contract planner again for the introduction of this item.
Sorry. So the proposed or the bylaw is proposed to be given fourth reading, final approval. And the initial 3 readings were provided at the 9th September meeting. No public hearing was held pursuant to the Local Government Act that allows for no public hearing to be held because of for consistency with the official community plan. And So as a result, we are requesting reconsideration and final approval adoption of bylaw 112225 to amend the zoning bylaw, amend section 4.3.11 of the home-based business regulations to add the following subsection that reads, despite any other provision in this bylaw, a structure in brackets medical services as shown in building permit 06-24-19 is deemed to be a permitted home-based business at 134 Cowichan Lake Road, legally described as Lot 1, Section 6, Cowichan Lake District, Plan VIP 5853, PID 005-902-118.
Sorry to have put you on the spot. I should have turned to our CAO for that. I apologize, but I took you off the hot seat, John, and put it back on us. With that, do you have anything to add?
I'll wait after council's consideration.
Thank you very much. Discussion. I think we've haven't discussed this enough. We're going to turn to Councillor Bomaka.
It's not discussion. I was just going to thank the town planner and our staff on this contentious issue. And I'm glad that under the amendment that you put in medical services and took out medical clinic, as that seemed to cause a lot of confusion in the public. So thank you very much.
I echo that as well. I think the definition is more precise. You don't depict a general practitioner, but you do within a medical clinic terminology. Anything else? Having said that, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? No, it hasn't.
No.
Would someone like to move it? Moved by Councillor Frisbee, seconded by Councillor Austin. I'll call for, now you can add something, discussion.
It's not really discussion. Because of comments I heard after September 9th, our last meeting, I was encouraged to watch that meeting on YouTube, which I never watch because I don't like to hear myself talking. But I then noted that this whole process had been tarred by incorrect information, non-truths, unfounded criticisms, and personal attacks. I also noted that the applicant did not present a case for the use of this property in person at either of the last two meetings, which most people do when they're asking for rezoning. Among the major concerns, and still are, traffic and parking issues that may arise on such a busy thoroughfare and a hidden driveway. Several residents and other businesses have voiced those concerns with the proposed use at that site. Rezoning should happen before changes are made for the use of a property and before the building permit is issued and a fee should be paid. Other businesses in this community have followed that process with respect to our community and our bylaws. I do find it unfortunate that residents that had issues with this proposed property have not written letters of concern to the town prior to our public meetings and did not attend those meetings in person to voice their concerns. Thank you.
Any other input? I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Please show that Councillor Bomaka is opposed, and that carries. That motion carries. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Council. I just wanted to provide some further clarification for the public, for the benefit of the public. Again, today's meeting on this item was not to consider occupancy. Council was considering an amendment to the zoning bylaw to include specific language about the structure. Okay, that's the first thing. So council is not considering occupancy. Now that council has adopted the amendment to the zoning bylaw, staff will schedule a final inspection of the property. The information I have is that this may happen as early as this week. If the inspection is passed, occupancy will be granted by staff. In order to use the space for medical services or otherwise, the applicant has to file an application for a business license. They have to be specific in their application how they intend on using the space And the owner must comply with the requirements of the bylaw for a home-based business, because that's what it is. There is a very specific definition in the bylaw for what a home-based business includes. If they wish to operate that space beyond a home-based business, it engages the conversation of upzoning to a commercial type property zone. No different from other medical service providers in the community who have to follow the same rules. This is not singling out 134 Cowichan Avenue. This is not picking on anyone. We're simply applying the rules to everybody within the community. The use of the property will define the proper zoning of the property. And I just want to reiterate a couple of things. Council is not considering occupancy. Council approved a zoning amendment. The property owner has to apply for a business license. Staff will conduct a final inspection of the property as early as this week. Subject to that inspection, if the inspection passes, occupancy will be granted without delay. And subject to the application for a business license, we will review it, no different than we do for any other application, and make a decision based on that. Again, I just wanted to share that for the public record.
Our job as council is to deal with zoning, not planning and occupancy. Unfortunately, a number of these do come to council routinely. I've been looking at how we can improve the process and speed it up by excluding council from those regular decisions that align with our OCP, align with our zoning bylaws, and align with our allowable uses, and leave it to the professional people that we trust and hired and rely on for the information. I still feel that council should be implemented in the discussion of contentious temporary use permits, for instance, whether it's cannabis sales or liquor license amendments. But for day-to-day planning of regular development permits and TUPs, I think we need to trust our staff. Having said that, the rezoning did pass, but the occupancy, as stated by our CAO, still has a process to go through. So appreciate that. We did miss the Director of Finance's report, so I will return to Ms. Gill for that presentation. Thank you for waiting.
Well, thank you. No worries. So you have the staff report in front of you. The Bishop Catholic Church located at 62 Fern Road is requesting a permissive tax exemption for the balance of the property at balance of the land improvements on that property. It's currently assessed as partly Class 8 for the church portion at 708,800 and Class 1 for the parish rectory for 96,100. Bylaw 1107/2024 already provides a permissive exemption for the Class 8 portion. The Class 1, the rectory portion, is currently non-exempt. Taxes paid on that property in 2025 were $1,278. The rectory is now under a 10-year lease with the Lake Cowichan Food Bank and has been since 2022. BC assessment standard practice does not allow permissive exemptions for residential properties like rectories. However, council under section 224 of the community charter may grant an exemption for the lease portion of the property used by a nonprofit, in this case, the food bank. So if council wishes to provide a permissive exemption for the rectory portion of the church property, currently assessed as Class 1, an additional bylaw must be adopted, naming the food bank as the tenant. So due to time constraints, the bylaw has been prepared and is being presented to council for consideration at this meeting in order to meet the October 31st deadline established by BC Assessment. It should be noted that the required documentation that the church should have submitted has not been received. If not received prior to the adoption of the bylaw in October 31st regular meeting, it should be received before then.
Anything to add, Mr. Thomas, on this?
Thank you, CFO Gill, for your presentation on this. I support the recommendation by CFO Gill. This is a timely matter because of the upcoming 30 days that we have with the UBCM Committee of the Whole, the requirement to actually pass bylaws at a council meeting, not a committee of the whole. This is a timely matter. So if council was to advance it up to third reading tonight, there is no requirement for public notices on this specific bylaw, so that's not an issue here. If council does advance it to 3 readings tonight, a decision could be made on whether adoption should follow by October 31st in order for BC assessment to apply the changes for 2026.
Thank you for that. And I have neglected to recall Councillor Sandu for this discussion, which I think is probably important, that we have a full complement of council and we don't get into another situation. No, my fault. I forgot. And with that, you will be presenting the bylaw tonight or 3 readings. Once I have Councillor Sandu back, we'll look for any input from council on this. So we're talking about the late item on the tax exemption, and that will be coming forward on the rectory portion for tax exemption. It is time sensitive, so tonight the CAO is proposing.
We're happy to represent, and I apologize, Councillor Sandu, if you don't mind.
Did you have a chance to read the staff report? Do you have any questions on the?
No questions on that. Councillor Frisbee, please.
So just for clarification, so you are recommending that this goes through?
Most of it is already tax exempt, being class 8.
Yep.
It's just that 96,000 that they're looking for
Yep.
an exemption for. Yes, so it is a decision of council.
To a CAO?
It is being recommended.
It has been recommended. Thank you.
With that, your pleasure. Would you like the bylaw read? Can we read the bylaw or no?
Yes. Okay, so this is the Bishop of Victoria Catholic Church Parish Rectory lease to the Lake Cowichan Food Bank permissive tax exemption bylaw 1123-2025. Section 224 of the Community Charter permits council by bylaw to exempt from taxation certain buildings, lands on which the buildings stand and the land surrounding certain buildings to the extent for the period and subject to the conditions provided in the bylaw. Such exemptions may be granted for properties used in relation to those already exempt buildings used for places of public worship under section 221H, which meets the qualifications as prescribed below. 224-2F, an area surrounding the exempt building, the hall, and the hall that the council considers as necessary to the exempt building and the land on which the hall stands, and the area of land surrounding a hall that is exempt under subparagraph 2. The town of Lake Cowichan deems it expedient and useful to exempt a portion of the land and buildings of the property described below from taxation. And that is the roll number 1002, 62 Fern Road. Is hereby exempted from taxation on its lease portion of the building, the rectory, to the Lake Cowichan Food Bank, assessed as class 1 or class 6, as it may be changed to for calendar years 2026 to 2029. So that upon adoption of this bylaw prior to October 31st, the land and improvements on the property described in section 2 shall be effectively exempted from taxation for the period as provided for in this bylaw. And this is to be given first, second, and third reading.
Thank you for that. Would someone like to move that? Moved by Councillor Austin, seconded by Councillor Wamaka. Discussion on the bylaw? That's for first 3 readings. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And further, it will come back for reconsideration and adoption. Is that correct? Thank you very much. To the agenda. There is no mayor's report. That will be in October. No notices of motion, didn't have any at the start. Is there any now? Councillor Sandu.
Can I just give a quick report regarding the town cleanup we had on Sunday? Sorry. I'm actually just going to read this from Diane Flood because she just said it so eloquently. A very big thank you to all of you for your support and participation in the 2025 Town of Lake Cowichan cleanup. We couldn't have done it without you. The weather held, a lot of litter got picked up, about 45 kilograms. There were some good conversations about the importance of keeping our lake and river clean and free of litter, especially microplastics. We shared some good snacks. Some of us won prizes, and I think everyone had some fun. We had a lot of community support as evidenced by the amazing array of donated draw prizes, the Kraken junior hockey team participating in the skills contest, the Lake Ambassadors face painting, the fun fish kite making by the Cowichan Watershed Board, and the support of the Apollo's men's hockey team. We had volunteers come from as far as Victoria and even had litter pickers who were visiting from California who just stopped in at Saywell and got some garbage picker-uppers, I call them, and went on their merry way. So it was really just a fabulous day. And we had a few little rain showers, just brief, but it was wonderful. And what we noticed, especially at the Saywell Park, was microplastics and confetti. And so the people that were part of this organization, they're going to meet and kind of have a wind down meeting and just what they noticed and just give some recommendations of what they think should be banned from our local parks to prevent this stuff going into our river, into our lakes. So that will come probably next year. But overall, it was a great event. For the first year, it went well.
Thank you for that. Any additional comments or questions? Thank you, everyone that did come out and support that. Now we have question period. And these will be questions to any agenda item that was addressed tonight. Please direct your question to the chair and ensure that it is a question and not just a comment. I will do my best to answer it. If I do not have the answer, I will get it to you through our staff. Sir.
Bill Garrett, 220 Lake Park Road. During tonight's presentation from Mr. Hallett, there was a mention from our mayor about changes to any bylaw would have to be presented to the APC or recommended through the APC for review and recommendation back to council. Was that a direction?
No, sir, that was just a comment on the extension of the timeline for the building permit, which is currently 2 years. So I would be looking for any input from the Area Planning Commission on what the impacts of increasing that would be. When currently the building permit is 5 years, 3 years past its exemption, what are the implications to that moving forward? And including the new step code that was implemented in 2024 that would have an impact on that building permit.
Then I would request our contract planner to get some materials and refer it to us for review.
I think I will talk to my CAO and see how we can move forward with this, whether or not it resides within our policy as to how we can amend it, or if we have the legislative authority to do that. I think we have to investigate on the process administratively prior to sending it there, but I would hope for input from the APC if that's the direction we're going.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I'm new at this, will be patient. Gerald Davies, I live at 18 King George North in Lakeview Manor. I have a question for the mayor. You have a massive amount of money in short-term deposits. Is that correct? And yet we have seniors and we have a transit strike going on, and yet we have seniors having to go out and I'll say ask for donations so that they can get people to their appointments, medical appointments, seniors appointments, things like that. Why can't you use those funds to fund them, to get proper transportation for those people during the strike? Is there impediments there for it? Some sort of legal impediments that you can't get at that fund?
Some of them are allocated to specific funds. So there are committed reserves that we have to adhere to, whether it's in water, whether it's in sewer, and whether it's in other aspects, roads and parks. We do have uncommitted reserves that we can utilize. But as I stated earlier, we are a participant in the regional transit function and would have to look at what the implications of providing funds to the seniors would do to impact us. And I'll turn to our CAO for some additional information on that. Thank you.
I would, through the chair, a not-for-profit organization, if there is one, who may wish to apply for a grant and aid, they can do that. That information will be received and reviewed, and council could make a decision how it wants to fund it or not. And that funds could definitely be used for that type of services that you're describing on a temporary basis. But again, we have a $5,000 budget annually for grant and aid. Council can vary that if it so wishes, but they would have to apply for that. So they can come to our office and we'll guide them through that process.
Okie dokie. All right. It seems to me that there's a heck of a lot of things that could be done with that $25 million rather than, I know you have allocated.
Let's just take into consideration that that number includes this office. It includes the water treatment plant. Those are incorporated into that number that you're giving. There is certain functions that are mandated to have funds in them. The overall financial picture of the town is good, but it's not $25 million as stated. It's very explicit in the financial report that we include our assets. This is an asset. The sewer treatment plant is an asset, and that has to go into those bottom line numbers.
Does not the CVRD provide in its budget a certain amount of money for those, allocate a certain amount of money for those very things you talked about, sewer, stuff like that?
Negative. Negative, not to the town of Lake Cowichan. Only within our municipal boundaries do the service provider provide that service, and those people pay for the service that is provided. Mr. Thomas, please.
The number of 24 million has been spoken about a couple of times tonight. We will certainly be in a better position in our next meeting to provide an exact breakdown of what that looks like, but I'd invite our finance expert or CFO to provide some high-level information at this time.
Can I ask you a question of your financial gentleman there, Mr. Thomas, I believe it is?
Through me, if you wish, and we will see if she has the answer. Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
How quickly, if they apply for a grant, how quickly can they get that money? Because I mean, this situation looks like it's going to be ongoing for a while, and they desperately need that money. So how quickly will that process take?
I would recommend we start with they come and meet with us, and we could put it on the very next council agenda, which is in October, the first or second week in October.
Okay, all right.
And if need be, I could call a special meeting, and we have the option to do an electronic meeting, should we need be. But we need to be approached for the funds before we know where to allocate them.
Okay, Grant, okay, I'll give you that, right? So you just can't allocate them.
Not without knowing where they're going,
Well,
because we are explicitly bound by legislation not to help businesses financially by our contributions, et cetera.
But
So we have to understand that it's a nonprofit and that it will be a benefit to the community. And I understand the benefit of providing that transportation and thank the 50 Center.
But these people have received a grant from the province on 2 occasions. So shouldn't that be bona fides or whatever you call it, proof enough that they're a nonprofit organization? It's not for personal.
But they still have to apply for us for the funding.
Okay, all right.
That's all.
Okay. Right.
Because we don't know what they want or how much they want.
That's fine.
But please have them approach our CAO and CFO and make that
All right, I'll
Make
do
that
that. Thank you very much.
presentation.
The other thing was, regarding Mr. Howlett, was it? I got a question here. I'm a little bit confused. Permitting, you can't do any renovations to a building without an architectural and an engineering survey. Is that correct? Or,
I believe I'll turn to the CAO for explicit confirmation.
That's not correct. There
Oh.
are certain requirements in the code where the property owner needs to submit certain information from an expert, like an architect or an engineer, but not every renovation requires those documents to be submitted.
could you tell me why Mr. Howlett's particular project would require that?
Because the scale of his upgrades definitely requires that as per the code. And there are building permit. He does not have a building permit in place for the work that he needs to do. He has a development permit in place, but again, he needs that building permit and needs to meet the codes because of the work that he's trying to do.
I see. Okay. Okay. All right. Can he challenge that in any way? Like, can that be changed? Because to me, that would be an impediment to so many people who possibly want to develop a property, but they got to go through all this. So is that a provincial requirement, or is that just a requirement by the city's bylaws?
The challenge Mr. Hallett is facing is related to the building code. The building code is prescribed by the province of BC, not the town.
Okay.
The building permit process is prescribed by the town that every other resident who are developing in the community, including several developers, follow without a problem. And so the challenge he's experiencing is not related to the town's bylaws, but more so his requirement to meet the step code requirement from the province.
Okay. Thank you. Mayor, could a collective of municipalities and town councils not seek to get a change in the provincial laws that state that you have to do that? Because that's a definite impediment to a lot of development that could be happening. Like, for instance, Mr. Howlett, he's having a hell of a time. He can't get a permit because anyway.
Well, I'm sure that every person that comes in here is informed of the information that is needed, whether it's the step code mandated by the province or the building permit timelines, et cetera, when they apply for their building. And on that application process is the timing of those permits allowances. A development permit area is allocated with no 2-year requirement for termination or expiry, but a building permit is a 2-year. We have no control over the step code that is implemented by the senior levels of government, by the province, et cetera, but we must adhere to them during our subdivision and building bylaw requirements. So unfortunately, we cannot supersede the provincial government on those step code requirements.
But
And-
I'm sorry, sir, I don't mean to interrupt you, but my only question was, can you not see an avenue to get the province to change that step code or whatever it is? I mean, collectively, obviously it's not only affecting Cowichan, Lake Cowichan or the Cowichan region, it's affecting province-wide. So and they're talking about wanting to get development going. So couldn't you, as a council, write a letter to the province and say, look, you're holding this guy up?
We can do anything we want, but I personally think there is going to be increased requirements within the step code coming that will even impact building more. So we can certainly consider that at a future meeting. We are going to the Union of British Columbia Municipalities this coming Monday, and we can have those discussions on the impacts of the step code on renovations especially.
Okay.
Not new builds, but it's more to renovations that has the impact on that.
Great.
And we will do that. I will do that. I'll commit to that. Mr. Thomas, nothing? I did okay with that? Thanks.
Okay, one final question, if I may. I don't take this personally, Mr. Frisbee, but you excused yourself from the development of the variance permit for that department on 169 South Shore Road because you felt it was influencing your businesses? It had a detrimental effect on your businesses? Is that correct?
No.
Did I misunderstand you?
Yeah, it had a direct effect on my personal interests.
What are your personal interests? Are they not business?
That is part of my business, that property, yeah.
So, okay. Now,
I think you're referencing why I didn't have a conflict of interest with
But-
the other
but-
property.
yeah,
So do you want me to talk about that?
the reason.
Why don't we take that offline? I don't think that has anything to do with the proceedings of today. We have implemented, if you have further
It
questions,
doesn't have any.
if you have any
implications?
further questions, do you want to take them after the meeting, please?
Oh, sure.
I've been very lenient on allowing you. It's usually a question and a follow-up, but I've let you move to about 5 or 6. So if you wouldn't mind just taking it.
Sure, if
after
Mr.
the meeting.
Frisbee would like to have.
He will most certainly talk to you. I can
Okay, very
guarantee you
good.
that.
Very good.
With that, one question, one follow-up. I forgot to say that.
Hi, Linda Henry. I live on Joel Road. I don't really want to give out my number, but anyways, I'm calling on the council here and the CAO with regards to the water. And I'm just curious to know why, when taxpayers have to watch our water consumption when it's on third stage type of thing, but yet anybody in tourism and such can come in here and just do whatever they like with the water, take the water, go swim in the water. And then the river's down and the fish die and I can't water my plants because of certain times. So I'm curious to know why we have to suffer with that, the consumption being that low. And is there something that can be done about it? Or is the river going to be like this forever? Is there going to be any sort of, improvement on it and that sort of thing? Because now with the tubers going in and I've heard about the sunscreen, which I don't use anyways, but it's polluting the water. So now I'm thinking, should I be drinking this water?
I can assure you that the water is not taken from the river. It is taken from the lake. If you go on North Shore Road, you'll see the pump station where it is pumped up to our water treatment plant.
Okay.
It is treated with chlorine. It is treated with ultraviolet. It is treated with sand filtration. So it is safe to drink.
Yeah, I can smell the chlorine. That's another concern.
As is required by the health authority to do that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, with the consumption, that is one of the highest rates of consumption in Canada that is allowed. 35 cubic meters equates to 35,000 liters a month. That's considerable amount of water. There are a number of provinces that have reduced their consumption considerably, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, et cetera, because of the impacts of aquifers, et cetera. There is a plan in place by the Cowichan Watershed Board for improvements in the weir. It has been approved, subject to increased funding, and Councillor Sandu sits on that table. There is a need for some more funds before that does come into effect, but that is a long-term plan. In the interim, I think we need to do what we can to conserve what we can.
And is that consumption just for Lake Cowichan? Because I know the water goes to Crofton and other places. So is that just for us here in Lake Cowichan?
Crofton holds the water license for Cowichan Lake and is allowed to draw a portion for their operations. Their intake is further downstream by Duncan and then piped to Cowichan and to Crofton for water services.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good information. Yeah, because I'd like to get it straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, instead of listening.
You should get it from that end, not the other. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
And just to add to the yesterday's or Sunday's rather cleanup, I noticed that you mentioned about everybody that I donated and baked 30 muffins for everyone. So it was quite good that, people are getting involved. And then just one more quick question, if I may.
Oh, I guess so.
Okay. Is the rest of the paving that you're doing over here completed? because I asked nearly 2 years ago if I could get a little bit of a patch over top of my asphalt in front of the shop because there's a big dip there and it freezes up and there's a big puddle and I end up having to sweep the water out, and in the wintertime it freezes and I'm worried about elderly people getting out, and it might be a litigation issue, I don't know, for the town or the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure.
Unfortunately, that is
Yeah.
your avenue.
Yeah,
we
I've
can-
gone there, I've talked to them, and they've passed the buck to you and said, Jazz actually said that he was gonna put some asphalt there 2 years ago, so I'm still.
Which is interesting because we do not own that road.
No, I know.
Ministry of Transportation maintains it, but please reach out to staff if
Well,
there's,
But,
talk to this gentleman and go from there.
great, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Sorry, John. You said you'd talk to anybody. No, first of all, I want to thank our staff for all the work that they do for us. They keep us on the straight and narrow, and thank you.
Hi, Catherine Worsley again from resident of Lake Cowichan, 320 Lake Park Road. So not on the agenda that I didn't see coming in because it was a late item presented in regards to the tax that you're talking about at the Catholic Church. I am the treasurer of the Cowichan Lake Food Bank Society.
Are you? Should you be speaking to this? No, I'm just bugging you. You don't have a
So
conflict.
I know that we had received information from our landlord to send into them, and you made mention that there was something still not received, documentation not received in order for it to get a final passing for you, or because we have our 10-year lease, and I definitely don't want to have this be an opportunity for us to lose our lease for our 10-year that we're already 2 years, 3 year in our third year into. So I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I will be connecting with Kathy, the other Kathy.
Okay.
And it
Okay.
did pass
So
three readings.
It's their documentation, not ours, because we've already presented ours.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. One more? Have we surpassed 15 minutes yet? Quite considerably. Would you consider extending? Yeah, I need a motion.
If not, I can just ask you questions after the meeting.
Okay, let's do that.
Do you want to do that?
Let's ask after the meeting.
Okay,
Okay.
you'll be there?
Yeah, we got to
You're
go
gonna
in
come up to
camera,
the
but I'll
table.
talk to you before that.
And it's important that all you're there. You're there? Thanks.
Well, go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Like
One question
Oh,
and a follow-up.
one question, then I'll have a couple more for you after the meeting.
Okay.
Okay. I'd like to know, so I have a question where I'd like to know what the definition of in this town is an eyesore. So I don't know who, maybe Mr. Frisbee wants to answer that, or the mayor.
I think through me, nuisance property bylaw is quite explicit as to, they are complaint driven. And we have had a number of complaints. First of all, on this property, when it was a derelict building, was considered to be a nuisance property because of the appearance of it. A nuisance property can be anything from overgrown grass to other aspects that are identified in that bylaw. And when that complaint comes in, then it is investigated and moved forward. We have had anecdotal and email and phone call complaints about the appearance of the property and the safety of the property. That is why we brought forward those concerns at committee of the whole meeting and afforded Mr. Hallett, I don't want to get the name wrong again, an opportunity to present tonight.
Okay, because I often walk through the town and I could snap about 100 pictures of properties that are full of garbage, full of old furniture, grass out of control in height, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just wondering, is this just, I hope this isn't someone being targeted.
So it's a bylaw process. If there is no complaint, there is no investigation, but I will turn to the CAO. I believe that's what he was going to say. but please add if you will.
I was just gonna say that there is an unsightly bylaw, or it's actually called the Town of Lake Cowichan Property Maintenance and Prohibition of Unsightly Premises Bylaw. There is a definition within that bylaw of what unsightly means, and it includes things like the accumulation of junk, filth, litter, brush, discarded materials, refuse, rubbish, garbage, graffiti, fences with holes, breaks, rot, crumbling, basically deleterious buildings or buildings that are perhaps neglected would fall into that category.
So why then is this law not being enforced? Because like I just said, I see many properties that literally look like dumps in this town.
Have you filled out a bylaw complaint?
No, I haven't. Shouldn't there be
That
somebody
is the process.
looking at this?
Sir, for the investigation, it has to be complaint driven. We don't go around with the limited staff we do to try to incorporate unsightly properties or nuisance properties with the limited capacity we have within bylaw. So if there is a complaint on a property, please proceed with the proper application of the bylaw complaint, and we will put it in the queue and deal with it as we can.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Brent Clancy, super simple. What's the process of increasing the grant and aid budget if it's 5,000 to maybe increase it to like 50,000 or something? That's all.
That would be a budget discussion for us to consider. And the tax implications on a $45,000 increase would be 2.16% increase. No problem. No, that would be a consideration for budget. Anything else? So I'm going to turn to our CAO for the reason of going into camera.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a request to go into camera pursuant to Section 92 of the Community Charter requires that before a meeting or part of a meeting is closed to the public, the council must state by resolution that the meeting is being closed, and B, the basis on which the meeting is being closed falls under the following sections of the Community Charter: Section 91C, Personnel Matters; Section 92C, a matter under the Ombudsman's Act.
Need a motion to go on camera, moved by Councillor Bomaka,